Hi, okay, today I want to speak with people about gang stalking and the types of things that come along with gang stalking. First of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Jamil. I'm a veteran esoteric researcher. My prime areas of research were the 60s and the 70s. Many of the subjects that I researched, a lot of people are unfamiliar with them. Topics like Jonestown or the zebra murders, those areas of research, and I was very diligent at it. I'm not an intellectual, but I developed myself into what I like to call an abstract intellectual, meaning I can just see through things fluidly that average individuals can't see. I've spoken to people who are PhDs who just don't seem to be able to see the things that I can see, but I loved research in the 60s. For instance, here's a yearbook from 1963, and this is an Oaks yearbook from Muskegon Heights High School, a local high school in the area. And I used to sit through yearbooks like this and read for hours and hours and hours, and learn about the people who lived back then, the types of lives they went out and had. I would research, who got drafted into the Vietnam War. I'm the type of guy, I would go get telephone records from like 1965. Somehow I could just, I used to find a way to get all kind of cool information. But at some point in time in my life, I ended up going through gang stalking. And this was around the summer of 2015. And I started noticing like cars on the corner. I started noticing people acting really strange. And I couldn't make out what it was. Now, coming from a conspiracy research angle, it didn't really shock me because strange stuff just seems to happen when you look into conspiracies. But like I noticed homeless people and different sorts of people like that wearing red shirts, and it just didn't add up. Like why would anybody like that be doing all this strange stuff? And so I started discovering what gang stalking was, and it took me through a loop. It took me through a lot of different stuff, a lot of different changes in my life. And eventually I came out with some courses back in the summer of 2016 to help people beat gang stalking. And I spoke to a lot of different people. And it did pretty good. I developed a strategy where I would walk the streets talking to different people about gang stalking, educating them on how it works, what it is. They would give me their feedback. Some of them would open up to me and tell me that they had been approached, they had been asked to do quote-unquote assignments, basically gang stalking, against me, and I just moved on from there. Like I remember back in the early part of the summer of 2016, I interviewed between like 20 and 30 different people. One of them even was a gang stalker. I didn't talk to them on the phone, but it was a woman. She emailed me. She learned that she was gang stalking people, and she figured out through the internet that what she was doing was gang stalking. She thought she was just working for some group that was just watching people, but she learned that she was actually gang stalking people, and she felt bad about it, but she was scared to quit doing it. She didn't want to do it anymore. And so she was contacting me for help, and that was a wake-up call to me that like, wow, my videos on the internet are effective. I'm helping people. People who are actually a part of this are contacting me and scared to keep doing it. So then there was people who were borderline suicidal. There were people who were potentially going to become the next homicidal maniac, out of a fit of fury, grab a gun and go out and shoot people because they're being gang stalked. There's different types of personalities I came across, and I was hoping to end all that. Get the guy or woman who's leaning towards suicide not to do that. Get the person who's leaning towards a shooting rampage not to do that. Get the person who's leaning towards trying a drug for their first time not to do that, and to educate them and to teach them the strategy, the ropes. So it was beneficial. I had a lot of people like contact me like, man, I can't believe what you're doing so good, your motivation's coming through good, I love your videos, yada yada yada. And these were people from all around the world. There was a man from the jungles of Africa who contacted me for help. So it was looking pretty good. One of the things I think that I've been through that a lot of people have been through is I actually had to go to a psychiatric clinic at some point. Now, this is an interesting story. I was going through a lot of trials and tribulation in my life. Like, it was a pretty hectic time, and I ended up going on a 37-mile walk. And at the end of the walk, basically some people spotted me on the side of the road, and they called the local police, and the police came and spoke with me and said, you know, it's too dangerous for you to walk right now. Why don't we bring you home? And I didn't want to go home. This was a time in my life where I was being gang stalked like heavily, and I don't know, you know, I was just frustrated. I was angry. I think at that point in time, I was looking towards, like, I had some money. I wanted to go to the next available hotel. I was on foot, but it was a poor idea, judging by the weather, the way the weather was where I was at. And I live in Michigan. But I made it back to they actually called an ambulance and took me back to the hospital. Now, mind you, I had been getting gang stalked for a long time up until this. And I actually was getting gang stalked on this walk the whole time. And I ended up at the hospital, and the people at working in the hospital were doing assignments. They were gang stalking me. I ended up going to the psychiatric clinic. I stayed in the hospital for 4 days. They said, well, you might have hypothermia. Why don't we bring you into the psychiatric clinic? They called my mother, and they told my mother some story. The two women told my mother some story, how my mother signed a paper to admit me involuntarily into a psychiatric clinic. I'd never been into any type of psychiatric help before, and I've never been on any type of official drugs. So this is all new to me, and it was like shocking. So I'm in a psychiatric clinic. The whole time I'm in there, I'm literally being gang stalked. The people working there are gang stalking me, like the color coding, just the way they're acting. I can tell they're doing assignments. It was really strange, because in a psychiatric clinic, you would think that's the last place that you would actually get gang stalked at, and it was really weird. But there was one woman who was working there, and I told her a little bit about me, like the type of stuff I had been through, and then she was cool about it. But at the end of it all, I had a big victory. They wanted me to take some drugs, and I said, you know, I don't believe in drugs. I'm not going to take any drugs. And it turned into a big thing where they wanted to have a hearing in the psychiatric ward to determine whether or not I was going to take a drug. At the same time, I was being gang stalked, and I had been being gang stalked until my time coming in there. So that was very interesting. So I said, no, I'm not going to do it. There was supposed to be some sort of hearing thing, right, to determine whether I take the drug or not. I kept telling them I wasn't going to take the drug. We can go through whatever process you want to go through. Like, you know, it's nothing personal. I just don't believe in drugs. At some point, I asked them, I said, can you put on a piece of paper, like documentation, that this drug will not have any other harmful effect on me beyond the already stated side effects? And they said, we can't guarantee you that. We can't put that in paper. I said, then, well, I don't want to take it. And they showed me a little bit of respect after that. They said, well, obviously his judgment is for, you know, the right reasons. He's concerned about his health. At that point, so they just basically just let me go. They were just like, okay, well, as long as you don't go on a 37-mile walk, we don't have another 37-mile walk, we don't have a problem. But the whole time I was there, I was being gang stalked. And, you know, honest to God, I swear on my life, this is just what happened to me. And I see a lot of people out there on the internet who are going through gang stalking, and they've been to psychiatric clinics. They've had to deal with a lot of stressful stuff, and I know what the people are going through completely. But then I've had people that I've spoken to around that time, a little bit after that, I went back and spoke to some psychiatric people about it, and they told me they believed me. They actually told me they believed me that I was being gang stalked. And so that was a victory for me as well, to say these medical professionals, they actually sat down and listened to me and watched some of my YouTube coverage on gang stalking. And I explained to them exactly how people get recruited to do assignments, how it's sent to their phone with the little Google Map GPS. They got to drive to certain areas to do the assignments. You know, I just sat down and basically just kept hitting them with knowledge. And they said, we believe you. So, you know, I know what a lot of people go through when they get gang stalked, you know, and I've been through enough stuff in my life through gang stalking where I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of gang stalking, but I like to try to help people to a certain extent, learn from my experiences. And I've done different types of things. Like, I've ignored people who were gang stalking me. I've embraced people. I passed out flyers. I've gone to speaking engagements. You know, I've traveled extensive areas, had my food drugged a few different times. Actually had people put a drug in my food, you know. And this is at a time in my life when I was getting a lot of work done. I was motivated. I was setting up my courses. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm still setting up my courses. I'm still moving forward. I'm not really deep into esoteric research anymore, but I still have a show called Modern Mystics where I touch upon stuff. Most of my stuff isn't so much hardcore conspiracy anymore. It's more along the lines of like scholarly type subjects. You know, you talk like metaphysics, or you talk Gnosticism, those types of things. Sometimes I get into like the hidden aspects of theology a little bit. ET genetics, extraterrestrial genetics. I've always been interested in those subjects. I've looked into those things for years. When I first started studying alternative research, I was looking at the Roswell stuff. So all that stuff is natural to me. It doesn't bother me to talk about that kind of stuff. But the gang stalking is new. That's something that just recently has been happening to me. So, but now I'm coming back out with some helpful information for people, and I'm getting some new feedback from people. And so that's what I'm hoping to do. It just, you know, keep learning from people. People can keep learning from me. But I know, you know, the funny thing is, I never really presented my videos about me being gang stalked in the past. When I came out with my Be Gang Stalking stuff, it was more about me just sitting down talking to people. And then when people saw that, you know, a lot of people said, he's being gang stalked, you know, he's helping us. But I never sat there and just showed people the footage like, hey, look at this color shirt, look at this car, look at that car, look at that car. You know, I got hours of footage on this stuff. Like, I'm a walking film studio when it comes to gang stalking. You know, it's always going on. So it's so much stuff, I don't even know what to do with it. So I just try to break it down into helpful routines and show people, like, you know, entry-exit routines, all the different types of cars, the brightening tactics. A lot of people may remember when I had my videos, I first put up on Beat Gang Stalking, I would walk the street and just wave at the cars. Just wave at the cars. Just wave at the cars when they were coming at me with the brights on. That came out of a tactic I was using when the cars would actually come near me like they were going to hit me. I'd walk for hours, and I had cars that would get in front of me and come towards me like they were going to hit me and kill me. And when that was going on, I just stayed positive, and I learned not to move. I learned not to budge. And then I just started waving at the cars. And then pretty soon some of the cars started waving back. The next thing I know, the car started offering me a ride, like pick me up, hang out with me, drive me around. A couple people actually picked me up. And so people I didn't know. And so then I started learning, you know, there's some sort of power over this. There was something you start using called the genie effect, where you're constantly being observed when you're being gang stalked. They can pick up audio. If you leave your phone around you and you say something around your phone, that's picked up and that could be mimicked back to you. There's all sorts of devices where you're observed constantly, not just in your home or with your own technology, but out in the public. So I started learning to say things and do things that would be mimicked back to me more to my liking instead of to my disliking compared to the other things. And I turned that the genie effect. And I've shown that to a few people who were being gang stalked. And they really picked up on it and started using it. Most of the people out, you know, in the target individual community, they're more about teaching people about like surveillance techniques and I don't know, more they just get more into like how much power these people got and how bad it really is, and you know, these people are working for such and such. It's a whole different thing. I don't like to get into all that. You know, I mean, from my perspective, from what I've seen, these are people who get paid prepaid credit cards, and you know, they get financed through front groups to harass people. You can look into it to any high caliber you want to, but that's just basically in a nutshell what's happening to you. Keeping it on that perspective, human beings are human. Thoughts have power, actions have power. What you do with your life is going to have the most impact on what's happening to your life. You know, if gang stalking was as big as what people said it was, there would be no YouTube videos on YouTube about it. If the people gang stalking you had all this power and all this stuff and hocus pocus stuff, you wouldn't be on YouTube talking about it. So that shows that there's a level playing ground. And within that, you know, there's metaphysics, your own energy, the vibration you carry, you know, just the way you network through reality. That's how you get through it. And so I'm hoping to show people a little bit about how that's done. And if you're a target of gang stalking, you'll learn. Just go out there and stand on the corner, and when you see somebody gang stalking you, Don't get scared, don't get angry, don't trip over it, just wave at them and start talking to them. I've done this with people who held high positions in society. I've done this with people who were drug dealers. All different sorts of people were hired to gang stalk me, and so I embraced all these different sorts of people. And if you put your intention forth and go out there, remember, you're dealing with the person. You're not dealing with any program. You're dealing with an individual. That's one of the biggest things I want to stress to people. A lot of people say the gang stalking program, and they look at everybody doing everything as a part of that. There's some of these people who are very nefarious. They'll lie, cheat, steal, do whatever they can to you. There's others of them who aren't necessarily nefarious. They don't even know what gang stalking is. And you got to learn how to deal with them on the level that they're at. It's just like anywhere else in the world. You approach people and treat them as you want them to treat you, and you move forward. So I encourage people to just keep doing that. That's be the first lesson I would give anybody who would ask me what to do. Just start waving at the cars and going up to the people and talking to them. And if they have an issue with you and they don't want to talk to you, they'll let you know. But 9 times out of 10, they'll embrace you. And they'll talk to you for 5 minutes or longer. Anybody gang stalking you who's doing an assignment, who's been asked to do something, they will talk to you if you walk up to them and talk to them. And so get a vibe for them, try to teach them a little bit about who you are. Next thing you know, you may be talking to them on the phone. You may meet a new friend. I had somebody who was doing gang stalking assignments on me, and we hung out all the time. Like, they would come pick me up right after they were doing gang stalking assignments on me, and they taught me through their phone technology, the app, the Google Map apps, how they were shown directly where to go to do these assignments. They were told every morning what color clothes to put on. And so I got a chance to actually watch them, through their phone. They would go to this cross street and that cross street. The phone would just keep telling them rapidly. The little app thing through Facebook. They had different people through Facebook telling them what to do. And so it was cool. It was a cool educational experience. And so, but the individual, they weren't affiliated with anything powerful or secret or something like that. They were just getting, little bitty bits of money here and there to put different colored clothes on and drive on certain corners and stuff. And so, I learned to look at the person more as an individual who just so happens to be doing this stuff. And, often people look at this stuff to be way more than what it is. All right, that's one of the biggest messages I would stress.